The Silverstone-based team could find themselves in a challenging predicament before the Canadian Grand Prix, as Lance Stroll's rehabilitation remains highly uncertain and he might miss his home circuit. Should this happen, several contenders would eagerly seize the opportunity to compete in a Formula One event, notably an experienced campaigner like Valtteri Bottas. However, the crucial question remains: could this situation finally make Lawrence reconsider his son's ongoing involvement? And if so, who would represent the optimal choice to replace Stroll beyond just Canada? It's widely acknowledged that Aston Martin currently faces substantial difficulties, stemming not only from their car's disappointing performance throughout 2025, but also from concerns regarding their driver pairing. Lance Stroll's contributions have been increasingly questionable over recent seasons, and despite the Canadian managing to secure all points before the Barcelona round, his driving standards have been quite disappointing. Demands for his departure emerged from various sources: supporters, analysts, commentators, with certain reports suggesting that Adrian Newey engaged in discussions with Lawrence regarding the future direction of their driver selection. Regardless, we're approaching an event where Lance's participation remains doubtful, and ironically, this particular race could have provided him with tremendous emotional boost. Competing at his home venue, Mike Crack, Aston Martin's chief trackside operations officer, offered details about Lance Stroll's rehabilitation timeline when he stated, "We must observe what the upcoming period will reveal. Additional examinations and evaluations will occur during the following days, and will gain more clarity shortly. Currently, it's extremely challenging to predict the outcome, but answers will emerge." Following the wrist trauma that Lance experienced during 2023, he required surgical intervention prior to the Barcelona Grand Prix. His decision to commence the campaign following his cycling incident demonstrated remarkable resilience. However, after qualifying in Barcelona, Lance may have become excessively frustrated and began destroying team equipment while engaging in heated exchanges with personnel. Immediately afterward, the organization announced that the Canadian competitor would undergo surgical treatment, raising questions about whether the garage incident potentially accelerated this procedure. Nevertheless, this clearly suggests that perhaps Stroll's Formula One journey is nearing its conclusion, regardless of his father's considerable authority as team proprietor. The pressing question requiring resolution is, who will step in for Stroll during the Canadian event? The primary candidate is undoubtedly Felipe Drugovich, given that both the organization and competitor have confirmed that Formula One represents his main objective. Should Stroll be unable to compete during that weekend, Drugovich faces a 24-hour endurance event at Le Mans representing Cadillac, yet he appears prepared to demonstrate his capability as a full-time Formula One competitor. When discussing his potential involvement, Drugovich commented, "Currently, I'm uncertain about how events will develop. Initially, we must extend our best wishes to Lance. Regarding Le Mans, my focus has consistently remained on Formula One, which must continue to be my priority." This clearly demonstrates that both Drugovich and Aston Martin stand ready to proceed if Lance fails to recover. But the more significant concern is, are they genuinely prepared to take calculated risks by entrusting the position to someone lacking any Formula One racing experience? Beyond Felipe, Aston Martin has access to another backup option, Stoffel Vandoorne. The Belgian possesses extensive Formula One background and has served as a highly skilled simulation specialist. However, the most intriguing aspect involves a potential third alternative that recently emerged unexpectedly. Until recently, Valtteri Bottas surfaced as an unexpected contender to substitute for Stroll, and this might represent the ideal solution for the Silverstone operation. Essentially, they would be installing a competitor who would operate machinery powered by the same power unit he utilized from 2017 through 2021. Additionally, Bottas currently possesses unprecedented determination to demonstrate to prospective employers seeking his services for 2026 that his drive remains completely intact, despite how his Sauber chapter concluded. Clearly, we witnessed numerous highs and lows during his time with the Swiss organization. But that period has concluded. His current focus centers on obtaining a Formula One position. The likelihood of any team besides Cadillac considering him appears minimal due to the present grid configuration, though this isn't necessarily problematic. Bottas possesses 246 Formula One race starts, establishing him as a tremendously experienced and exceptionally capable competitor for any organization. Certainly, his age might be a concern, and given Formula One's recent shift toward younger talent, is he truly the appropriate selection? Wouldn't you prefer to witness what the Formula 2 champion Drugovich can accomplish? However, from Aston Martin's standpoint, they're not positioned favorably for driver experimentation at this moment. Every championship point matters in the battle among the midfield competitors, and Aston Martin's significant decline in the constructors' standings clearly indicates they must implement major modifications to progress without Stroll. When discussing his sporting future, Bottas emphasized that his current lack of a racing position stems from circumstances beyond his control, explaining why his Formula One career isn't finished. He further explained, "I find myself currently without a competitive seat, though not by personal preference. I absolutely continue to believe that my Formula One journey remains incomplete. I possess additional contributions to offer. This remains my primary passion. That feeling of observing from the sidelines has intensified progressively, and I'm genuinely beginning to long for competitive racing." Undoubtedly, should Bottas join Aston Martin beginning with Canada and produce exceptional results, he would significantly improve his prospects of selection by Cadillac. This would serve as undeniable evidence that his abilities remain sharp and unchanged. Cadillac has acknowledged that Bottas represents a legitimate contender for their available positions, particularly since Colton Herta appears less enthusiastic about pursuing a Formula One opportunity than initially believed. However, Cadillac isn't pressuring themselves to make hasty decisions and continues waiting strategically. Expanding on this topic, Bottas noted, "I believe Cadillac isn't experiencing extreme urgency. They've been incredibly occupied with their efforts to establish a competitive entry for the following season. I understand my personal schedule regarding when I need information about next year. I consider August roughly as a reasonable deadline, though hopefully we'll receive updates sooner. One certainty exists. This championship shows no mercy toward inadequate performance, with Lance Stroll representing the sole exception. Despite the promising beginning of the 2025 campaign, we might be witnessing something previously considered impossible. Lance Stroll's replacement, potentially extending beyond a single event to encompass the season's remainder or even 2026. Should any of these competitors demonstrate the car's potential for midfield point scoring, which Lance achieved occasionally during 2025, Aston Martin would need to assess their alternatives promptly. Fernando Alonso will probably conclude his career following the 2026 season, yet when specific opportunities become available, immediate action becomes essential. This explains Adrian Newey's belief that Max Verstappen will pursue the most competitive machinery available, and demonstrating readiness with such a program for 2026 could completely transform the competitive landscape. An optimal outcome for both organizations might involve Bottas replacing Lance and immediately scoring points during his Canadian debut. This approach would strengthen his candidacy for Cadillac in 2026, while simultaneously allowing Aston Martin to demonstrate their dedication to attracting Verstappen and developing championship-contending machinery. Ultimately, they possess all the essential components from Red Bull's period of dominance, Adrian Newey and Honda providing the foundation. Considering all these factors, do you believe Bottas represents an excellent option for Aston Martin in Canada, even though the team initially prioritized their reserve competitors? More significantly, if they select the Finnish driver's expertise, do you think he could elevate their performance and assist in the constructors' battle against organizations like Alpine, Haas, and RB? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, and afterward, be sure to watch the video that will appear on your screen momentarily.